Good afternoon and welcome to Smithsonian Gardens. Let's Talk Gardens. I know I say this every week, but this is going to be a really special presentation because it is. This is something that we hear you want to know, what do we do? How do we solve the problems that get thrown to us every year? And you want to know about your garden too, how to take care of something. What is something? So that's what we're going to do today. My name is Cindy Brown. I am the Manager of Collections, Education, and Access at Smithsonian Gardens, and I am joined by a panel of expert gardeners who are going to be helping us with the questions that you have. And we are thrilled to see what some of your questions are going to be. So for lay of the land, we have the chat box. We'd like you to put the questions in the chat box, please, and we will do our best to be able to answer them. Zach is going to help us out with any type of research that we need to do, because even though we've grown a lot of plants, we've forgotten a lot of plants too. It's something that comes in. Janet says it perfect, in out of the pot of fagata. And it is just, yeah, I've heard you say that before, maybe not for years, but I know I've heard you say that before. That's the Latin name, out of the pot of fagata. And we hope that we're going to be entertaining as well as informative. So this is going to be a real laid back session today. With me, and I'm going to go from left to right. I don't know what it looks like on your screen, but we have Christine Price. Christine is the horticulturist at the National Museum of the American Indian, and she has quite a collection of plants that she grows. A lot of native plants as well as a vegetable area for Native American vegetables and croplands. We have Janet Draper to the right of me, and Janet is the horticulturist in charge of the Mary Livingston Ripley Garden, which is basically a garden of color, senses, texture, everything that is just going to delight home gardens as well as delight the Smithsonian Gardens. Janet? And Sarah T is down below in the corner. Sarah Thibault is the gardener at the Hirshhorn Sculpture Garden, a very formal, very a garden that requires knowledge of texture and different colors of green, all things that don't compete with the sculptures that are also in the garden. So she has a hard task. How do you get things to look great without color? Color is really important for gardens. Aaron Clark is right below me, and Aaron is a horticulturist, one of the horticulturists at the American History Museum, and she tends the garden around the skirt, the base of the American History Museum, called Common Grounds. And it is a garden filled with memories, filled with stories, and she'll be glad to share information. She also works in the Victory Garden, so very knowledgeable about herbs and other things. Sarah Dickert is the last of our experts, and Sarah Dickert is the horticulturist at the National Air and Space Museum, which it looks beautiful behind her right now, but she's had lots of experience working around others and working around construction. So if you think you have problems with your soil, poor Sarah, oh, makes me cry when I see things disappear in her garden. So now it's up to you. We hope that you're going to put your questions in the chat box and get us started today. And with what is topmost on your mind in the world of horticulture? So while I wait, I'm going to ask a couple questions that I want to know. What do I need to do right now in the garden to get ready for next year? What is the thing that makes garden shine, or it easier to have a garden that looks like one of the Smithsonian Gardens?
Ooh, pick me.
Janet! What do you do?
Softball. That's a softball. I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that I absolutely dislike hearing from visitors is, are you closing down the garden for the season? Are you cleaning it up? Are you? No. I mean, a real garden should have 4 seasons of interest. And for those of us that garden in Washington, D.C., there are so many great things that give color and life and interest throughout the season. And also the whole idea of cleaning up the garden and tidy, taking everything away. Well, we've learned environmentally that those sticks and twigs and things that we're taking away are taking away the homes of insects that we want in our gardens. Good or bad, there's still food for the birds and other wildlife. And a garden can be more than just beautiful for us. It is a home and habitat for others. So this is your way to be a little tidy. To be a little messy and embrace a little chaos. And also leave many of those twigs up for the winter. You'll have a different winter interest when the snow lands on top of calamenta, and it looks, it's just so beautiful. But if you cut it to the ground, you miss out on that opportunity. So be a little lazy, don't tidy so much. Let the leaves, if they're not piled up a foot deep, let the leaves stay where they are, or if you really must, run them through a chipper or a lawnmower and blow them back in. But insects and wildlife need that organic material, and that organic material also goes right back into the soil to feed the soil. So don't leave leaves piled on your lawns. That'll kill your lawn. However, less lawn, more garden, get rid of that. But don't be so anxious to cut everything back and close down shop, because you don't need to.
I agree. Thank you, Janet. That's so important. Leave the homes for others. We don't want those poor little insects and other critters to not find a place. And people say, why do you want insects in your garden? Why do we want insects in our garden?
Well, some of the insects are beneficial insects that we want to use instead of chemicals or pesticides in the garden. So we can bring in the beneficials and the pollinators out there. I've got a vegetable garden. I've got a meadow growing right beside it at the museum, and it brings a lot of pollinators from the meadow over to the vegetables to ensure we get good fruit production on the plants and things like that. And we don't use pesticides or chemicals on the insecticides on our garden at Indian Museum. We use ladybugs and predatory mites, mealybug destroyers, things like that on the plants instead of chemicals. So not all bad bugs are bad. There's a lot of good ones and beneficials out there too. So be careful how you treat the insects in the garden. Always know what they are before you reach for that spray bottle or something like that. So
very well said, Christine. Thank you. And Janet, if we can be a lazy garden, that means all of us are gardeners. That means all of us could go to the Mediterranean for the winter, because there's nothing to do in the garden in the winter.
Oh,
right?
No. This is fall is actually one of our busiest times, because we are public gardeners and we do have visitors 12 months of the year. We want our gardens to be interesting and not just for those that come during the summer season. So right now we're planting all of our winter crops to give interest. So all the kales, oh my gosh, the kales in DC are a beautiful winter crop, along with pansies. Pansies, I think it's funny that the term pansy is often applied as someone that is wimpy or soft or things like that. Pansies are tough little doers. They bloom all winter. The bees, I unloaded a truck yesterday, I guess it was. And by the time I was getting all these plants ready to be planted, the bees had already found them. They're erysimum or wallflower. Botanists have moved it from erysimum to cherryanthus, but wallflowers are awesome for us. They will bloom most of the season. There's so much. And also, if you want bulbs in the spring, if you want tulips blooming, you got to plant them now. So all your spring blooming bulbs, crocus and daffodils and tulips and Chianodoxa and scillas, and get those in now. So it's not too late to to be planting. It actually, the weather has been so warm lately. It just seems, the season seems to go on and on. But as long as you can still dig in the soil, you know, I've chipped ice to put bulbs in the ground before, and they do fine. Not as
my
much
fingers though.
Yeah, not as much fun for the gardener to do it late season, but the plants are fine. So it's a busy time.
It is. Now the questions are starting to come in, so I don't know if you can follow them along, but is there a specific website that tells us what to plant in what season?
I think a lot of the extension agencies within your state, since we have an audience all across the country, maybe even international today, a good starting point would be to look at your extension agency websites, usually through the land grant universities of your state. They usually, for annuals and vegetables, definitely have the most recommended planting windows for that, especially for annuals and things like that. When they're cold sensitive, you want to wait on planting those. So I think a good point is just to look for local references in the land grant universities. A lot of public gardens also have great information on there, which are, you know, there's a public gardens all around the country as well. So be sure to check out those websites. And we have lots of great information on our website too, but it's for mainly our gardens here in DC. So
Yeah,
That's right. Very good. I couldn't have said it better. That's great.
yeah, everything is so regional. So that's why there's not one site to go to. You want the information for your region, but then even within that region, you're going to have hot sinks and cold areas. So it's a guideline, not any rigid rule.
I agree. Anybody else want to weigh in on that one?
Well, I was going to say you can always visit a public garden near you. And if you find a gardener in the garden and you have a question about either what they're planting this time of year, or you know fall is coming up or spring is coming up, ask them what they're planting that time of year, or even a local garden center, not like a big box store garden center, but like a good garden center, talking to the individuals that work there. They're also, I mean, we love talking about plants. Hello, we're here. So we will be happy to give you lists of at least what we're planting. And then, you know, it is things that are regional and it's things that we know that work well. So, you know, reach out to us, talk to us. We're on social media. Send us questions on social media. That's fine too.
We will answer. We answer every single question that gets sent to us. So that's a good thing. Okay, this one makes me cringe a little bit, only because soils is one of my favorite topics to talk about. But what is the best way to amend clay soil for flower bushes? Do we have to amend clay soil?
I feel like that is a tricky one. I feel like you can, at least to some extent, when you are going to plant your flower bush, if you have not planted already, dig a much larger hole than the size of the pot that it comes in and add some compost to it. Not a lot. You don't want to change the composition of the native soils that you have in your yard. But even that is not maybe the best. And if it's something that's already established, you can do some top dressing with compost. That might be the best option if it's something that you already have, is just every year top dressing with compost, or as Janet was saying, leaving the leaves. That is an extremely easy way to add compost and add organic matter to your soil, because it will break down and get into that soil. But there's not a great easy answer for that, I don't think.
How about Erin? How about with, I'm sorry, Christine, I'll just ask the question. And you, how about with vegetable gardenings? What do you do to amend the soil, if you do?
Did you want me or Erin?
Either one.
Well, normally what we do for our planting at Indian Museum, we're planting in the same beds year after year. So we occasionally do bring in fresh soil with a little bit of organic matter incorporated into the mix that we buy. But the most important thing is, and I was going to add this to Sarah's comment, was really just loosening up the soil. Where I'm going to say busting it up, usually with small like spades and pitchforks, loosening it up, and then we're incorporating the soil into the bed sometimes rototilling, other times, with a shovel. We are a little careful with the rototilling that we don't overdo and destroy the soil composition. Sometimes we're just rototilling right the areas that we're planting and leaving some of the soil untilled, especially in a vegetable garden setting. It gets awful muddy if you try to till up the whole thing. So we normally do our rows, but when we're incorporating the soil and all, we'll recondition the whole bed. But for planting, we're just tilling right the areas where we're planting.
Yeah.
So
Something I can't stress enough to everyone, clay soil is some of the most nutritious soil out there. It's filled with more elements than any other type of soil. It's very good for our native plants, but it is holds water perhaps a little bit longer than what we want in the spring, and then it dries out. And when it dries out, it's a brick. But be very careful of what you amend it with, because you can make bricks. When people say amend it with sand to be able to have it drain better, you are making a brick. So be very, very careful. Organic material is much easier to amend with than inorganic, and doing it over the top of all is much better than doing it piece by piece, just because you are creating little pockets. So that's our soil lesson for the day. We will move on. This one's going to be a hard one, and I don't know how to answer this one, so it's up to you guys. I have some weird yellow small insects that attacked my plants and are dying. The plants, I'm assuming, not the insects. Is there a way that they can save their plants?
The only insect that pops to my mind that's sort of lime green yellow are aphids, which we see on a lot of, especially new growth fleshy plants. Maybe when they're under a little stress, the new growth is where a lot of the nutrients are. Aphids tend to go on those parts, flower buds, things like that. There are products like soaps and oils and stuff for getting rid of aphids. We use Ladybugs on our tobacco, which is highly infested with aphids every year. They're effective. It does take a couple of weeks and cycles of the Ladybugs to get them going, but we never add insecticides on there. We just use Ladybugs on ours, and that's effective at controlling them. But you can also use a soap mixture or something like that to control them. But I wasn't really thinking of any other insects that are yellow, but maybe somebody else has one that they know of.
My immediate thought was aphids too. So I'll second that,
Yeah.
that answer.
Yeah. But it's very hard to diagnose the problem when you don't have a visual. And again, earlier we talked about don't reach for the spray of chemicals before you know what the pest is.
Right.
So we're just doing some swag here, wild guesses, because without seeing the insect, the doctor's just sort of guessing.
Right. That's the hardest thing. People ask us questions all the time and we don't get to see. But the author of that question, I suggest that you take a picture of your yellow insect, send it to us at gardens.si.edu or gardens@si.edu, I apologize, and we'll be glad to look at it and see if we can identify it for you. We have quite a few even entomologists on staff, so we'll see what we can do. This one kind of relates back to the soil question in a good way. How can I stop four-leaf clover from growing in my empty soils?
You might be lucky because four-leaf clovers are lucky,
That's what I was gonna
Exactly.
Because leaf clovers growing in their bare dirt because they're so hard to find, but it's probably oxalis or another weed that looks like clover actually.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If it's true clover, it's actually a good thing because it fixes nitrogen and adds nitrogen back to your soil. And my bunnies in my backyard love it. And not that I want my bunnies to eat other things, but I have clover all throughout my lawn, and I don't have a problem with it, but it will spread into your planting beds. And you just got to keep up on it. Yeah.
Just clip it away.
Yeah.
And I must say, officially, you can follow Smithsonian Gardens because we have a new bee lawn that's
Yeah.
in front of the Natural History Museum. And that bee lawn includes clover. And
Mhm.
why do we want clover? It's one of the earliest blooming flowers for all of our native pollinators to go to. So instead of cursing that clover, just put some other things in with it to accompany it, and it will help fix nitrogen. That's
It's a
all.
great ground cover.
It's a great ground cover, except it does go dormant in the winter, but it's a great ground cover, and it will have a symbiotic relationship with the turf that you put in. So that would be good. Okay, this one I'm not gonna. If a plant struggled, this is an easy one. If a plant struggled with fungal disease through the summer, would it be best to remove those leaves from the diseased plants? And we can all do in unison.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. It's best to clean up anything. Peonies. What's your worst one, Erin, that you clean up leaves every year?
Yeah. We have had some issues with peonies, but anything really. There's a lot of rusts and things that can be in irises and daylilies, and if you can get some of that foliage out that you know is infected
Mhm.
and cut it back and clear that away, that is one garden tidying thing that's good to do.
Yep. Do we compost it? In unison.
No.
So
No. Don't compost things that have fungal diseases unless your compost gets up to, I don't know what the top number is, 160 degrees. It's hot. You
It's
want a
hot.
hot pile, and that means steam is coming off of it. So don't compost diseased plants. Those are things that go to the landfill.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I can add, a lot of times if you have the same plant every year that is problematic with fungus, and it's just every year you're fighting with it, compost it. Yeah, I mean, your garden should be something that gives you joy, not constant frustration. And I totally understand keeping a peony because, oh my gosh, I love the peonies. And so it's a balancing act between how unsightly it gets and how much joy it brings you. But if it's just overwhelmingly frustration because of the fungus or diseases, there are other plants that would take that space gladly in your garden and bring you more joy.
Like
So
maybe a native plant, which is what the next question is. What's the general strategy for introducing more natives into their garden?
dig a
buy
hole
them.
and plant them.
And buy some.
Yeah.
Dig a hole, behind them and dig a hole. I like that. That is the best strategy. All right. How about something a little bit more specific? Maybe decide what would look good in the garden.
Right. Or maybe what grows best in your area is,
Yeah.
I mentioned before, the audience could be from everywhere. So what's native in my garden in DC may not be the native that you grow in California. So see what the plants are growing naturally in natural settings in your area, and or the ones that you're attracted to that are in native settings, the public gardens that have native plants. See the ones that do the best, the lowest maintenance. We want them
Yeah.
thriving in the conditions that you're giving them without imploring a lot of extra maintenance and effort into growing them. Let them go on their own naturally. And it also means that we accept the way they're going to look naturally. It doesn't always mean that native plants are going to look showy, perfect, and full of color. They go through sort of a seasonal changes, and what looks good in June doesn't always look good in August. So we sort of accept that with these native plants and stretching the palette. There's, at least in our region, there are plants that bloom, from early spring through late fall. So you can incorporate several different plants in there and get an extended bloom time, or sometimes the beauty isn't in the blooms, it's in the foliage. So looking for grasses and great fall color, beautiful spring emerging leaves and buds. So you just have to look at what appeals to you and these environments and select those plants. And you can always ask the people that have these plants growing, whether they're your neighbors or public garden settings or other areas where you see people maintaining them.
Yep, that is terrific answer. Public gardens, public gardens, public gardens. Go see what they're putting in. because they're going to know what works best, and they'll even share the ideas with you. Okay, this is a long one.
Yeah. Hold on. It looked like Erin had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Erin.
And look at your very specific conditions. Just because it's native to your area doesn't mean it's going to like your spot. And so you want to make sure that you've looked at the sun and shade aspect of your spot and the moisture level, perhaps even the pH. So, but generally, look at your moisture level, look at your sun and shade. There are different things that will grow well in dry shade. There are different things that will grow well in a moist, sunny environment, more of a rain garden environment. So if you have those aspects, you can definitely search for plants that will meet those needs.
That's a great tip for all types of plants. Don't just go to a store and buy something and put it back and hope that it lives. Yeah, Janet.
One thing that I do want to point out, I've been doing more and more natives in the Ripley garden, and I love the whole idea of using what is indigenous to our area. But many of those natives, the reason why the natives have been so successful is they either spread fairly aggressively by root runners or seed. They're survivors. So use a little thought on them. They are not cultured plants that will stay exactly where you put them. Let's say they're very social. So be ready for some socialization of your garden. And you might not, if you're looking for the proper, like a British garden and, a laid out proper garden, that might not be the aesthetic you will get using our natives. So match the aesthetic that you are hoping for with your plant choices.
Agreed. Okay, on to this long one. Due to transition, I have various trees and shrubs in containers. What is the best thing to do with them during the winter months? This person is zone 6B, so not much cooler than us. Will placing them close together at the foundation of the house east facing work? Anybody move lately and take plants along with them? You have, Sarah D.
I have done that a couple years ago. Only a few plants I brought with me, but I'll jump in. I feel like east facing generally works. Kind of clustering together is also something that's usually good. I'm also going to assume that these are trees and shrubs that would normally be outside anyway, not things that are like we would consider tropical. So I'm going to assume that they would live outside during the winter normally. But yeah, kind of just having them in a sheltered place, kind of protecting them from winter winds, that kind of thing, is probably your best bet. We do have some maple trees at the Air and Space Museum, actually on the north side of the building, that are in containers, and they do fine. Now, granted, they're still against the building, and so they do have some protection, but we haven't had any issues with them, and they're in very large containers outside the building. So,
Sarah T, you're popping.
I mean, if they are tropicals and they can make it outside, it's like your temperatures, you can always get lights and put them around the base of them, the regular holiday lights, put them around the crown, and you can also get greenhouse fabric.
Not LED lights though.
Yeah.
Not LED,
Right.
regular iridescent, like
Old school.
yeah. Lights. And then wrap them. You can also wrap in your plant too. We do that in the hop garden with things that are planted in the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the lights give off heat. You're making a little microclimate by covering it with burlap or something that still has airflow.
Well, yeah, you get that, and then you also I think sometimes we wrap ours in plastic to keep the wind off of it. So you want to give it like a balloon effect to have the airflow in there, not suffocating it, and we lightly tie it around the base.
That works well for cactuses.
Yeah, and that's great for plants that are marginally hardy also, because the container is going to get freeze faster than in the ground. So the larger the container, the more probability your plant will be fine during the winter. Little tiny containers that can freeze solid, yeah, you better have some durable, hardy plants in there. So I'd say you lose a zone of hardiness when things are in a container.
Yep. And I'll make an amendment to that too, Janet. If it freezes solid and stays frozen solid until it's ready to actually break dormancy in the spring, you're okay
It's fine.
too. Because it's the constant freeze and thaws that actually kills the roots more than anything else. The other thing I want to warn people about putting containers up against the house, how big is your overhang on your house? And are you assuming the plants are getting watered? Yeah. So if they're not getting any water, check on them. Things that are totally dormant really don't want any water, but if you have evergreens in there, quickly dead. Dead. Brown evergreens are nice, but maybe not what you want at Christmas time. Okay. Oh, I love this one. What are your favorite edibles and activities for youth gardens in the winter in our area? It's in the DC area. So what are your favorite edibles? Think schoolyard gardens and for the winter time. Anybody?
Well, I think it's kids are always fascinated by seeing the whole life cycle of vegetables and where food comes from and growing. But I think if you can appeal to them with something that's, I'm going to say, oversized, like large plants, things that grow quickly, it fascinates kids when they see, the gigantic pumpkins. Sure, little ones are great, but it's the big ones that really get people's attention, things like that, or something that's bright and colorful out there that really draws them in the attention. But it's also great when they can just discover where the food comes from. So I don't do the only activity I do for kids in my garden has to do with the ladybug releases. So we're not really doing kids programming, but maybe Erin has some programming she does.
Yeah, there are a number of things that you can do with kids during the school season. This is a challenge because a lot of pumpkins and things you want to have started earlier in the summer. There are a lot of winter crops that you can use. You can do kales and broccolis and things like that. You can do some fall peas as something quite quick before we hit our frost here. And then you can start to move into more about soils. You can compost with the kids. You can do compost bins inside during the winter. So when things get really cold, there's still things you can do inside, starting seeds or doing composting.
And one of the things I always think is important is to show students how they can eat whatever they're growing. So you mentioned kale. How about kale chips? What do you got? I can't see anything. Kale chips.
Garlic.
Exactly, garlic. I plant my
Onions.
garlic at Halloween, make that a tradition. That's even better than getting chocolate candy that every child will love to do. I mean, come on, it's so you don't have vampires.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Good try.
Yeah.
You like
Chocolate.
well, how about chocolate covered in garlic? But there are a lot of things, but make it so cook it for them. You serve it in a way that they see the benefits in what they're growing, because the tomatoes, some of their favorites are not going to be able to be grown, but they're still tasty.
It's really time to lend yourself more towards the hardy, cold hardy, leafy greens, root crops, beets, things like that.
Right. Carrots can make it over winter.
Parsley,
rutabaga, onions.
This is one that we actually use as a decorative plant as well in all of our fall plantings. And it's really great for swallowtail caterpillars. They're swallowtail, one that does not migrate. They overwinter here just fine.
So gave you some ideas. Talk to us. We'll tell you more. Okay. How do you care for mums growing in your garden so they bloom in October? I found sun here too hot. Ooh, I wonder where. Anyway, to cause bloom. Then they seemed happy to bloom all by themselves, but poorly. What is the proper care in the summer months? So mums that you're growing that I guess are perennial mums or mums left over from your last fall display. how can they grow them so that they're going to bloom in October?
Jump
Okay.
in there. There's a lot of plants that you can actually basically prune them earlier in the summer
Mhm.
that will delay the bloom time until later in the season. So that includes things like mums, things like asters, things like goldenrods. Basically in say late May, early June, at least now this is in the DC area, late May, early June. You can just take the plant and cut it down, take a third of it off, maybe even up to like a half of whatever is grown up until that point, cut down maybe a third or half of it. And then that will delay the blooming till, I don't know if can't promise it'll bloom in October, but it will at least delay it so it's not blooming in August. So that's something that's really nice. And a kind of a benefit of that is it helps it to not be so like large and leggy by the time fall rolls around, which is really nice to do with perennial asters and that kind of thing. So they're not like all flopped open and kind of yucky looking.
What was that, Sarah?
Like yucky looking, yeah. So that's something that we do in our gardens, or I've done at least at Aaron Space, to kind of shape our perennials so they kind of maintain a nice shape, and so they bloom when you feel like you should expect to see them blooming in the later fall months.
Yep, that's a perfect answer. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. All right. We can't answer this one. I'm sorry, sir or ma'am. Which garden centers do you recommend? We can't recommend garden centers. But if you were just to do a generic list, what would you look for in a garden center so you knew it was one that you would want to repeatedly go to?
You're asking us, Cindy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Diversity of plant material and knowledgeable staff. Staff that you see every time that you go there, and not just the summer hires. People that are really, really passionate about plants, and they have the knowledge. I mean, gardening, it takes a lot of knowledge. It really does. And a lot of times, if someone has the job for a short period of time, they're not really invested in plants. So I love the independent garden centers. I mean, those usually started because someone had this passion for plants and they wanted to share. And so they started a garden center. Those are the people I like to support and go to because they know what they're talking about. They've done it.
Yep. I really agree. Any other? I mean, that's perfect. Independent, knowledgeable, diversity of plants. Yes. So do shopping. Don't go to Google. Do and look for it. I'm in the process of bringing in potted plants to overwinter in the basement with grow lights. Should I fertilize it this time? The plants that they're bringing in are camellia, jasmine, citrus, majestic palms that are all well established. So if you're going to bring these in, what do you do?
Who wants it? Who wants it?
Oh, I do. I do. I have a lot. I have Livingston. He's been with me for 45 years. He has to come in. Do I
Who
fertilize?
is
They asked, should we fertilize them? Oh, Livingston is my split leaf philodendron that I
Oh.
have a new name.
I don't
that-
fertilize mine. When I bring
No.
mine in, I don't fertilize them until, probably like March or April, right before, depending on if we have a uniform season or not. I have a bunch of different tropicals I take in and out. I don't use my grow lights because I have enough windows, and just try to like put them it's like a cluster near like our sliding glass door, and so I put all of them there. I don't water as often as I probably should because I'm trying not to stimulate growth or making them real happy because they are going to go back outside. I don't want to stress them out too much though, because once you start having stressed plants, that's when all your mealybugs and all your other fun insects, houseplant insects come out. So just trying to keep them happy.
That's exactly it. So you don't want new growth because new growth for one, well, you really don't want new growth. Otherwise, there's not going to be any room in my living room. And you don't want new growth because Sarah Dickert said it earlier. All the insects are attracted to that new growth. And you just confirmed that, Sarah T. The fact that that new growth is like salad bar for all the insects that may have just come in a little bit, but because now you're providing nice warm materials and no predators, they're going to be preying on those nice juicy new growth that is on the plant. So no fertilizer, little water, light is very, very important. And the only thing that I have to say to fertilize, because Justin, our orchid grower, would hit me if I didn't, keep your orchids fertilized during the wintertime. That's the only one I can think of that I've fertilized. Maybe if you have some other specialty plants, but those orchids, they sure
Yeah,
are
like your
finicky.
like the Easter and Christmas cactus types. I mean, I would probably fertilize them as per needed.
Right, right. But otherwise, put them on a diet until next spring. Okay. Speaking of mums, mine are dying a little. How often do you need to water them in autumn?
One thing with mums is if they wilt one time before they actually break bud and are blooming, it really damages the plants and it's hard for them to recover. So if they wilt severely before they're actually in full bloom, it seems like a lot of those buds do not open on them. And you see that a lot, even when you're shopping for them in garden centers or, at the farmer's market or whatever. If they're slightly wilted, avoid them at all costs because they do not recover well from wilting. So make sure you are checking them and watering them at least 2 or 3 times a week. And if they're in a pot, you might have to water them every single day if you're just having them out on your front porch seasonally, something like that. Because if they wilt, it's hard for them to recover.
Yeah, that's true for most plants. If I will, I really don't recover very well either.
Yeah, but
so
the buds just do not open.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, this is another good one. How do you find enough ladybugs to put on plants with aphids?
I guess it's
hand gather
directed at
them?
me since I'm the one that mentioned them, but we actually buy the ladybugs that we use. Our entomologist on staff, she purchases them from us. You can buy them yourself online. You need to get them early on in the season. They become a kind of a hot commodity as the season progresses. It gets a little tricky to get them, but there are several insect companies that just rear insects and sell them for releasing beneficials and these educational purposes, things like that. And there are some local garden centers here in DC that actually sell them as well. You do have to call up and double check to make sure they have fresh ones and they get them in on a regular basis, because I've had to buy them from these places at times when we couldn't get them shipped to us in the mail from online companies. So,
Are there any type of ladybugs we should avoid?
well, we're buying the native ladybug, the
Okay.
ladybird beetles. The convergent ladybug is the one we're using. We're not using the Asian ladybugs. That one is a slightly different color, and it's the one that likes the western southern exposure on your house and climbs all up on your chimney and the bricks and comes in your windows sometimes. You don't want those. Those are not the ones we're buying. We're buying the convergent ladybird beetles, which is one that is a predatory beetle, and it's commercially available. It actually comes out of California. A lot of them are in the Sierra Nevada mountain range over there and come out of California as well.
Okay, very good. Yeah, you especially don't want the Asian because they bite too. If you've ever been around them, and they bite. So, how about, are there any easy ways, but good ways, easy but good, to be able to create a new garden bed for next year? I'm lazy. I don't want to double dig. I don't want to rototill. What can I do to create a new garden bed so I can plant things next year?
A lot of people do raised beds for vegetables, and with that you just build up. You just make 4 walls with wood, and then you add in new soil from there. A lot of people do what's called lasagna gardening, where they like to stack newspaper and compost and straw and different types of organic matter and kind of let it sit over the winter, and it'll kill off grass. And then you can dig that in the spring and start working with that soil.
Okay. That
I
was
mean,
actually recommended to us. They didn't call it lasagna gardening, but the soil survey people last week recommended to, put cardboard down and then put soil on top. So that sounds much better than meatball. Actually, I'd rather have meatballs than regatta cheese, but anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
it'd be good. Anybody try anything differently?
No, when my husband and I turned our front lawn into a meadow,
Mhm.
and we did the cardboard or newspaper method, and then layers of mulch. And in I live in Arlington County, and you can have wonderful mulch or compost delivered to your site. And just the main thing is be patient and let it do its work. You can't, well, I'm not known for my patience, so I jumped right in and started working it up, and it caused more problems because everything underneath had not died back yet. So don't do what I do. Be patient. Let it sit there for like 6 months and start breaking down, and then it'll be less work for you in the long run. Let the worms do the work.
Exactly. I like that
Right.
idea a lot. The older I get, I want those worms. Sarah.
I was gonna say, like, if this is near your house, just make sure you grade away from your
Yeah.
house, so you don't get the water issue.
Yeah.
But if it's a new bed, just grade away if you're doing this. I mean, you don't have to plant veggies in the raised gardens. You can also cut flowers. You don't have to do wood, because I know wood's really expensive now too. But you will want something so your soil doesn't wash away.
Right. Yeah. Okay, now this is going to be my own question. I love decorating during the holidays with natural materials. And I'm thinking, if I'm going to do that, how do I plant my garden so that I have these natural materials available for a cornucopia at Thanksgiving or a wreath for fall? What do you all suggest that I could do to have a garden that would allow me to bring things inside to decorate with?
Sarah, I'll jump in. Or Christine, go ahead.
I don't know, with silence, I was like, oh, so anyway, I think there's a lot of plant material out there that you can use. It's a matter of being creative about what part of the plant you use, whether it's a seed head or dried leaves or colorful twigs from plants, things like that. So just there's a use for dried materials too that you could save through the summer season and the fall. Your dry your flower heads, dry the seed heads out to keep them for later use in the garden. If you're going to be doing heavy pruning or trimming on, say, the cherry laurel plant or a holly tree or a pine tree or something like that, maybe you could save the pruning till a little later in the fall, or put the cuttings down in the shade and keep them watered a little bit so you have branches that you can use for decorating, for fresh materials, incorporating them in. It's nothing wrong with going out. I do it all the time in my yard. I run around there and I cut random things at home here and bring them in the house, or make decorations out of them, especially near the holiday time, and just consider it part of the pruning of these. I have a lot of evergreens, large trees in my own yard that I'll cut off of and stuff, but just drying things, collecting them throughout the season, and hanging them up. If you're going to dry them out, just hang them upside down so that they keep their shape, and keep them kind of in a shaded area so they don't get too crispy from the sun.
Yeah, crispy's not good for a wreath.
No.
No.
Yeah, and
Sarah,
also
yeah.
preserving them. If it's fresh material, you might want to think about if you want to put a preservative on there, on your fresh greens, just so they don't dry out as much, especially if they're exposed to sun or heat, depending on where you're making the decorations for.
Okay. Sounds good. Another hobby is cooking. So I have all these wonderful herbs in my garden right now. Just delicious. I've had so much fun with my Thai basil this year. Thai basil and eggplant is my favorite this year. and I know it's going to die. As soon as the frost, all my tropical herbs are going to die. What do I do to preserve the flavors for the winter time? I hate crock pot cooking.
Well, if you like to make pestos or things with basil, you can often go ahead and make that up, but without the proteins, so without any cheese in it yet, and freeze it. You can freeze it in ice cubes, freeze it in little baggies, and that way you can add a little bit to your winter dishes as you go. A lot of other herbs you can dry in your oven on warm, or you can hang them to dry. But yeah, things like where you want to have a fresh taste, try to freeze those.
Okay. Can I bring in my plants and grow them on my windowsill?
For certain herbs you can, but don't even bother with basil. Basil loves heat and sunlight, and there are very, someone will have the exception and say, I overwinter it all the time. But that person just has the really good conditions. Even in a greenhouse, it is hard to grow basil because it loves the heat. So unless you're paying some serious fuel bills on your greenhouse, now freeze your basil. But other things like creeping thyme and things like that, absolutely, you can grow on the windowsill.
Okay, I will.
You'll want to look at which herbs are perennial, like that, and which are annual. You know, basil's a warm season annual. So if you can't get enough frozen, you can try just growing a little bit from seed, just a little bit at a time. It comes up from seed really, and you can use that. But keeping a large plant happy for a long time is hard without that heat.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I won't cry too hard. But how about, this is the time of the year, as we mentioned, to start new gardens. What if I want to enlarge my garden? I have all these perennials. What would be appropriate to divide now and stretch out what I already have?
Sarah
watching you.
Dickard, I think you want that one.
Do I though? No, I was kidding. Do I want that one? I feel like you could definitely, like, now is a good time to do perennial dividing, only because you can see them, you know where they are, even kind of before they go dormant and sort of disappear below ground and you forget what you planted where. You can work in the same garden all the time and I don't remember where things were planted once they disappear. So now certainly not all perennials can be divided, just some are just not happy with that in general. And I would also at least stay away from grasses. Grasses look really great in the garden right now, so don't destroy the beautiful structure and shape that you have from grasses. Kind of wait till spring to do that. But certainly in the spring is a perfectly easy time to do it too, as things start to emerge before they get kind of large and unwieldy to deal with. Just either digging up the whole clump and hacking it in half, or if you just dig a chunk out or something like that. I'm not sure, without having a specific plant to reference, I don't know if there's a good rule of thumb to say one way or the other, because some perennials are just, they're finicky, you know, and they have their things they like and their things they don't like.
Yeah, don't try to divide Monarda right now. It really does not like to be divided and moved. And grasses too, they don't, because they're going dormant. So you said it perfectly. The structure is beautiful, so you want to stay, but they're also really, really going dormant, and they don't set roots as easily. So I will heed your advice, because I know I've killed many, many plants in my life trying to move them now, so I don't have to do it in the spring. So there was another question. Do you reuse container soil, assuming it doesn't have noticeable bugs or diseases?
You know, the experts say you should never, ever do that. You should always, the experts say you should always have fresh soil. Yeah, sometimes when you're in a pinch, and especially if it's like it's a huge container and it's at the bottom of the container, I've done it. Refresh as much as you can, especially on, say, the top foot of your container. That's where the roots are, unless, you know, you've got trees and things like that in your containers. But we've all done it. It's not the best thing, but we've all done it.
Yep, I've done it. Raise of hands.
Use what you have, make it work.
Yep. Okay, so now you have 6 experts that are telling you,
Well
yes,
done.
you can reuse your container soil. But Janet hit it on the spot with saying refresh it. What you've been growing in the container has compacted through the season. The roots are doing it and it sinks a little bit. So refresh it. Refresh it next year though. Let that yucky soil stay in there all winter long. That will help kill off the roots and the diseases too if it's outside in that cold weather. So take advantage of nature and let it help you. Believe it or not, we're at the end of our presentations, but I wanted to ask one more question. What plant are you going to, that you anticipate on growing next year that you're looking forward to? Either something that you've grown for years and it's your favorite and you'd like to say hello to it again next year, or something new that you've never tried.
I think if you guys haven't ever tried Tithonia, it is an amazing plant. It's like having big orange daisies
Yeah.
on a, and it climbs and bushes up and it attracts so many pollinators. So if you like seeing monarch butterflies coming through this time of year, and plant Tithonia next May.
That's such a cheery plant. It really is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I am going to do more there's a hybrid Phlox paniculata. That's the early sensation series. And I had one plant of early sensation crystal, and I was just blown away by phlox. Normally bloom, Phlox paniculata, the garden phlox, normally bloom just in the middle of the summer. They bloom for a couple of weeks and they're done. The early sensation series, or the one that I grew, was a blooming machine. It started in May and I'd cut it back and it would be reflush and reflush. It's on its 4th flush of blooms this year. I want to explore the rest of that series. So that's me nerding
Sounds
out.
good.
Yeah.
I think we're all a bit of nerds, so we follow you in that, Janet. Anybody else want to try something?
Well, I kind of grow the same plants year after year in the cropland, and the plants we grow have a limited range on them. They're ethnobotanical Piedmont region plants, but I am going to grow a different variety of corn. It's been out for a couple of years now, but it's not one that we normally grow, but it's the glass gem corn, which also
those are
has
pretty.
American origins.
Yeah.
So I normally do Cherokee corn, but I'm going to do a little bit of both next year, just to see how that does and bring in maybe some new color out there on the Three Sisters garden next year. So
that will be lovely. That would be lovely.
I'll go next. I think
Okay.
one of my, I'm going to have some reduced garden space next year at Aaron Space, but I will have some containers. So I'm planning to go just crazy with tropicals and annuals. And one of the annuals that I love using, and I know a lot of our other horticulturists love using, it's a salvia, and the particular variety that a lot of us like is called Amistad. For us, it's actually almost a perennial. If you got a warm spot, we've had some spots where it has come back for a couple years now, but it gets like 4 feet tall and like 3 feet wide, and these beautiful like dark purple salvia blooms on them. And they are just usually covered in pollinators. Hummingbirds actually love them. So even though they're not like a traditional like red flower, which you usually think of for hummingbirds, they love to go to that plant, and it just fills up so much space in the garden because it is almost a tropical annual plant. It really blooms all season long, like into
Yeah.
the fall until you get frost. So that truly kind of fits that criteria when people are looking for a plant that like blooms all summer long, like that is the plant. So
Yeah.
I will always incorporate that into gardens and annual designs when I have the
Yeah.
chance. I love that one.
Blue suede shoes is really good too. If you don't want purple and you want more of a blue, but Amistad is superb.
To knock out. I like it.
Yeah.
Sarah, Sarah T, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, so typically we don't have as much color as everywhere else. So I try to go with some foliage color. So Canna and Tree has really given me a lot of foliage color. The foliage is like a purpley silver. And also Sedum Plum Dazzle is a good one that is probably hardy here. We treat it as an annual, but I'm sure if you put it in your ground, it'll like stay there all year round. And it's a good one too. It gives you a nice pinkish purpley color and these cute little pink flowers on it. So that aren't too big and bulky. So that's nice.
Well, I think we've started a new tradition. I think we could have a daily show called The Garden View with all of us. So watch out for contracts.
Well, that would be
soon.
fun.
Wouldn't that be fun? I know I would really like that. We all have such different opinions and such length of experience underneath our garden trowels. And I thank you all for sharing your experience, for making gardening sound so much fun, which it really is. And that's why we should all do it. For fun, to improve our lifestyle, to improve our community, and to improve the habitats. So thank you all for doing that in the gardens at Smithsonian Gardens, and we hope that we've encouraged you to do it at your own home garden. Join in next week for a guest speaker that will talk to us about pollinators. It'll be lovely. You'll know more. A wiser gardener. Thank you all. Thank you all. I'll see you in the garden. Bye-bye.
Happy gardening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.